Okay, come get your headlines. We've got a lot to talk about today. Joe Biden receiving dirty money. Donald Trump, still trying to shut him up. We have got a lot to talk about. Let's go for it. Okay, welcome back to Continue Freedom. If this is your first time here, be sure to give me a like and a subscribe. Leave some comments below. If you haven't seen any of my content, I've been posting on Rumble now for a couple of years, and I'm just now coming over to YouTube. And the only reason I'm doing that is I'm hoping to bring more people to Rumble. That's it. So I'm also on Locals. You can follow me, Continue Freedom, everywhere. But let's go ahead and get into some headlines. So the first thing we're going to talk about: Joe Biden received $40,000 in laundered China money from his family. This is told to us by the House Oversight Committee, and coming specifically from James Comer. They uncovered evidence suggesting President Joe Biden received $40,000 in laundered China money. He outlined how the cash allegedly made its way from a Chinese company to the current president in 2017 via a series of companies and Biden family members. And they lay it out here. They've got the actual check that came from James and Sarah Biden, but it went from a Chinese company over to Biden and the Chinese, that joint venture that they had with him and Hunter, shared an office with folks from China. And then it came over to another Hunter Biden entity, went down to James and Sarah Biden, then over from them, or it went down into one of their business entities, then over from there to James and Sarah Biden directly, who then cut a check to Joe Biden. So this is the kind of silly political, this is the money laundering that we have in current day politics. And I don't care what your party is. I don't care what your affiliation is, but under no circumstances should we want to have dirty money in politics, period. I don't care who it is. I don't care which party it is. This dirty money has got to stop. We've got to stop it. We have to stop it. We have to restore a little bit of faith back into our government. We have to have a little bit of faith into our republic, because right now it's at an all-time low. What people think of Congress, what people think of our elected officials, everybody thinks that they're dirty. And in a lot of cases, they are. I listened to, I don't know if you've probably listened to Cenk Uygur, I forget how to say his name. Either way, from the Young Turks. And he's been on several podcasts. He's making the rounds because he's running for president. And even though he can't become president because he's not an American citizen, he's still running anyways. It's to sell books. It's to get subscribers. It's a ploy. He's investing some money in a presidential campaign so that he can, try and build up his channel. Fine, do what you got to do. He's got millions of dollars that he's gotten from, the rich people that helped him get started that he rails against. But nonetheless, he has been making his rounds, and he talks about money in politics. And I would venture to say it's the only place that I agree with him. But he's talking about the dirty money, pay to play, all that kind of stuff. Okay, got it. But we're talking about a campaign that is reaching tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people. And that's going to take money. Like it just is. And individual donors, yeah, it's the way to do it. It's the ideal way to do it. But we're at a point where we're never going to get all of it out of there. But we need oversight to make sure that it's not this kind of stuff. This isn't, for a campaign. This is just money that they're putting in their pockets. Because you got to think that the trillions and trillions, the billions and billions, the millions and millions that flow through every day, every hour, every week, every month, every year through Washington, D.C. It's why they have I believe they still have more millionaires per capita than any other place in the country. So it's dirty money. And for that to be on our president, it was on Hillary Clinton and her husband and her family. They took hundreds of millions of dollars from the Saudis, or took millions of dollars from the Saudis. I mean, it is shameful when politicians leverage our system. They leverage our republic in order to enrich themselves. This would be unheard of to our founding fathers. It really would. And if you have any respect for the founding of our nation, you would know that this was not what they intended. So while they did a lot of things really well, I think they should have put some additional things in the Constitution that would have made this more punishable than it is. So you might not have heard, but there's a gag order against President Trump that's going to prevent him from criticizing prosecutors or the judge in the January 6th case. They're trying anything and everything they possibly can to shut down Trump. And the D.C. judge Tanya Chutkan has allowed the imposition of a gag order on President Donald Trump in the federal case against him, in which Joe Biden's Department of Justice alleges that he engaged in a conspiracy to defraud the federal government, a conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, and a conspiracy against rights. This stuff is so nebulous. The stuff that they're trying to pin on him, they're making some broad leaps. And it's really unfortunate because we're paying the price. We as the American people are paying the price for this. We have a guy who was doing great things. And you have to ask yourself too, why? Why do they feel the need to come after Donald Trump so hard? It's because the lobbyists were not in the White House when he was, right? When he was in the White House, the lobbyists, they had to take a number or they just weren't allowed in. Nobody was answering their phone calls. And so you have a lot of 7-figure and 8-figure incomes that are going out from all these big companies, paying people to get that access, to get those bills passed, to get all this done, to get that done, to make sure the legislation is crafted properly, and they aren't able to do it. Why? Because Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka and Jared Kushner and Eric Trump and all these other people were in the White House, but the lobbyists weren't. So those are big expenditures for these companies that aren't generating the results that they expect, which is to have politicians take the legislation that they write and inject it into omnibus spending bills, or to put it into a continuing resolution, or you pick your poison. Like it's ridiculous. And so I say all that to say that they know that Trump, one of the big things, selling points for him, is going to be his reelection. The fact that these court proceedings, like he's going to use that. He's going to use that to build up his campaign, to garner more support, and they're trying to shut him up. They're saying, nope, you can't talk about it. Now, I think gag orders are stupid as it is, but this is what they're trying to do. So on top of shutting him up, they're trying to put him in a situation where he's not even eligible to run in every state. So their plan, I'm assuming, this is my assumption, their plan is to remove him from some states. Probably will try to do this with some swing states or some places where he has a possibility to win or where it's a close race. And if they get his name off the ballot, there's no way he can win unless, pending some write-in, if people are writing in Donald Trump. But that's not going to happen. We know that the average, run-of-the-mill Republican is going to go in and mark an R, and if there's no R there, they just aren't going to vote. Or they'll vote for a Democrat and say, I don't really care. But they're trying to get his name off the ballot in several states. I believe Colorado, well, this is the one, Colorado is trying to do this. And Colorado is it's kind of a purple state. I believe right now it's a pretty blue state, but it's one of those that's kind of split down the middle, more or less. This is shameful. This is the links that they are going to try and keep him from getting into office should tell us that he's doing something right. That doesn't tell me that he's doing something wrong. It tells me he's doing something right if they are trying to get him off the ballot. They are terrified of Donald Trump. They are absolutely terrified of him because I firmly believe that he is fighting for the people. And I don't, politicians are politicians, but Donald Trump doesn't conduct himself like the average politician. Politicians don't say the things that he says. They don't do the things that he does. They don't act the way that he acts. These are, politicians are people like Ron DeSantis and other folks that are, presenting themselves to be these super polished and pristine people. We are electing people. That's the problem, right? We think that the president is going to be some entirely, infallible person, almost like a deity. And I could get into a deeper conversation about how that is us replacing God with government and the head of the government as we see it now, not as the way it's supposed to be or the way that actually is. We see the president as the head of the government, and he's not. He's just one part of it. And if you go back to the founding, he was supposed to be a fairly insignificant part of it. But nonetheless, we have, through executive action and through the way that we have contorted our constitutional representative republic, we now have the president as a much more powerful position than it used to be or that it should be. But I say all that to say that we think that this is some deity, and it's not. These are fallible people. Now, criminal activity is one thing, But if you're talking about somebody who cusses too much or somebody who, is rude or sends out mean tweets or whatever you want to say, pick your poison. They're human beings. We're not electing them to, for that purpose. Donald Trump was effective because he was a bulldog. Donald Trump was effective because he didn't really care what other people think. Now, he made some political concessions in the name of getting things done and things that I wish that he had not done. But nonetheless, I believe he was fighting for the American people and doing the best that he could in his first term. Now, if he gets in for a second term, I am pretty convinced that this guy is going to he's going to come off the top rope onto some people. Absolutely come off the top rope onto some people. And I hope that this happens. It is going to be glorious. If he can clean out the federal government, oh my goodness. If he can, think about the entire, the Department of Education. He's not going to wipe out the Department of Education. That's got to come with time. But man, if he could clean house at the FBI, anything inside the executive branch, which is massive. I think it's over 1 million people, maybe 2 million people. You can imagine that, 1 million people working just for one branch of government. If that doesn't tell you that our government has gotten out of control in its size and scope, I don't know. I don't know what will convince you of that. But if he could cut it in half, go Calvin Coolidge on it, and just shave it all down, that would be absolutely glorious, and I would be a very, 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 very happy man. So the next thing we're going to talk about is Owen Schroyer. So if you don't know about Owen Schroyer, he was worked for InfoWars, and he's back in solitary confinement after calling a friend to post a message on X or on Twitter. And so it says Justin Schroyer with InfoWars has reportedly been sent back to solitary confinement at FCI Oakdale Prison after a phone call of himself sending a message to his followers was posted to his X account. So in the phone call posted to his account on Tuesday morning, Schroyer expressed his gratitude for the letters that have come in for him, saying, "I can't tell you how much they mean to me." Schroyer revealed that he has been let out of solitary confinement after spending a week there. Schroyer had been placed in solitary, they said, as a result of COVID intake protocols. But let's be honest. He was out, or he was in solitary confinement as soon as he got there. They let him out. Now he's back in because he's posting things online. Now, should somebody in prison, if you flip the script on this, should somebody who's a murderer be allowed to make any random post on Twitter that they wanted to? I don't know, because when you commit a crime, you give up certain rights, right? You give up your right to vote, you give up your right to a firearm, which I think that in my opinion, after you're let out, that should be on a probationary period, or something to that effect. But he didn't actually commit a crime. Owen Schroyer didn't. He didn't go into the Capitol. He's much like the head of the Proud Boys, which his name escapes me right now. Either way, Enrique, whatever his name is, getting 22 years and he wasn't even there. Like, this is political prosecution. This is lawfare. This is leveraging our system against political rivals, period. The same thing. It's the same thing that's happening to Donald Trump, the same thing that happened at January 6th. So if they steal another election, they're going to try to put the fear of God into everybody so that, if you try something like that again, they're going to throw the book at more people. And we still have hundreds of people sitting in prison without charges who are being wrongfully, this is just gross violations of civil liberties. It's absolutely disgusting. So anyway, poor Owen Schroyer, pray for him. But on a good note, on a high note, Pfizer revenue is down 42% from last year after decreased demand for COVID vaccines. And the second piece to that is only 3.5% of Americans opted to get the latest COVID shot, says the CDC. It turns out if you get blood clots 5 feet long and, permanent heart damage and myocarditis and pericarditis or whatever else you get, it turns out people don't want to get the shot. And then, yay, the pharmaceutical companies lose money. This might be another place, by the way, where I, am in agreement with the Young Turks, is that the pharmaceutical companies have had way too much leverage, way too much power, way too much money. All these billionaires being made on on the good health of American citizens at the expense of the good health of American citizens. Now, granted, most American citizens aren't all that healthy these days, but it is absolutely shameful to be pumping them full of experimental drugs and then getting rich off of it. That's what I'm trying to say. But that's what they're doing. And that's what they've been doing ever since this vaccine came out. And I will tell you that that's one place where, I was disappointed with Donald Trump over his continued support for the vaccine. I feel like he would probably go a long way in garnering some support if he told people, look, I didn't know. This is what they told me. And maybe he said it and I haven't heard him. But if he would say, look, I thought this was the right thing. We were pushing this through for the safety of the American people. And, my bad, it didn't work and it caused damage. And this is something that we're going to have to, rectify. If the government's going to pay money to anybody, how about you pay it to the 12-year-old with myocarditis? Pay for their health insurance there. That's because that's on you. You're giving the immunity to these nefarious companies and forcing people, the number of people that lost their jobs or that got it so they could keep their jobs and they could keep supporting their families and paying their rent and paying their bills and keeping the lights on, all because of some stupid drug. And not to mention the lack of disclosure for all the Christian people that took it. There's a lot, and I know a lot of them, they got the jab, but they didn't know that this had aborted fetal cells were used to test this toxic drug. They didn't know that. And so now you've got someone who's going to live with, who's vehemently against abortion. And we've allowed these drug companies to use aborted fetal cells. And that, some people will make an argument that, it was cloned and then it's a clone from one that was back in the 1980s and that it's been reproduced and reformulated and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But you either have an ethical line or you don't. That's the way I look at it. If you're going to excuse away, the ethics behind something like that, I've got a problem with that. I just do. And you can folks can wrestle with that. Look, it's if you can sleep soundly at night, it's fine. But I'm just giving you my point of view. My point of view is I'm entirely against it, and I'm against the practice of that. And even if I'm doing it at the expense of one child 30 years ago, I'm against it. That's just, and so we have to stand firm in our convictions with that, I believe. But anyway, those are some of the headlines that I wanted to pull up today. I'll have some more coming here very soon. And I'm going to start publishing a lot more videos here on YouTube. So you're going to want to make sure that you don't miss them. Be sure to like, be sure to subscribe. Leave me comments below, even if they're bad, even if you hate the content that I'm delivering, leave a comment. Hate doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. All right. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching.